Well friends, we have had 3 lectures on world population growth, and now we are going to start a series of lectures on population of India. There will be 4 lectures on population of India, but I thought that this time before making my presentation, let me ask you that if you are to discuss population of India from sociological perspective, then what kind of questions will interest you? Can you tell me a few questions on which I can dwell upon in these 4 lectures on population of India?
First is what are the social factors which affects the high population rate in India?
Recently, some controversy related with the population growth and religion, fertility and religion, some kind of relationship, especially the recent census. Some controversy is going on.
And can we look at the government policies and relate them to the socio-economic background of people residing in different states, and how is it affecting these populations?
Okay. So, you have basically raised 3 different questions. One dealing with social aspects of population growth, another dealing with religious differences in growth rate or related issues, growth rate of population and related issues, and third thing is there have been several formal policy statements, first by Dr. Karan Singh in 76, followed by Janta policy on population, and then in 2000 we had national population policy. So yes, as a student of sociology, you would certainly be interested in population policy issues of India, and we will discuss them. Any other thing related to growth of population of India? Can you suggest some questions related to growth of population? Because the issues related to policy we will discuss in subsequent lectures when we talk about population policy in general and population policy in India in particular.
So one thing is, in different states of India there is different population growth. So what are the reasons behind that? Why there is interstate differences in population growth in India?
Okay.
Especially when we talk about the Bimaru states, in reference to the Bimaru states.
Especially in some northeastern states also. I think some states like Nagaland. I think the highest population.
Right.
So what's the how sociologically we address?
Okay. So then what we will do, that let us first look at what is the size of population of India, present size, then what has been the history of population growth, because once we know the history and we know the factors, Sonal said something about policy and Rohini said something about social aspect. Once we know the social aspects of population growth and we know how society of India is changing, how its social organization, stratification system take place in the growth rate of population of India, and that includes your question of religious differences. You are also right that the population of India is not growing at the same rate in different regions, and as you have rightly identified already that there are some Bimaru states. This Bimaru is an acronym which originally stood for B for Bihar, BI for Bihar, MA for Madhya Pradesh, R for Rajasthan, and U for UP. So Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan and UP. Professor Ashish Bose, one of the leading demographers of India, had given this acronym, and this stood for these 4 states. Later on, Professor Bose himself revised his definition of Bimaru, and he included even Odisha in Bimaru states for a very interesting reason, that Odisha was one state where fertility was declining, or family planning performance was quite okay, despite the fact that mortality, infant mortality, child mortality were also high. Usually it is said that, and in the last lecture you had asked this question, is there any connection between mortality and fertility? Yes, there is a connection, and usually we find that in the process of demographic transition, it is first the mortality that declines in response to industrialization, economic development, urbanization, education, etc., and then fertility decline follows. But in Odisha, something interesting happened, that even at a relatively high rate of mortality, including infant and child mortality, maternal mortality, contraceptive practice was going up and birth rate was declining. So Ashish Bose said that Odisha is in a particular despotic situation, and he included that also in Bimaru states. You are also right that some, not only northeast but several of border states of India had very high rate of growth, and that had to do something with illegal migration from neighboring countries. We will talk about. So first, let us look at what is the population, what is the size of population of India, what is its growth rate, what has been the history of growth rate of India's population. Then we will talk about something about sex ratio. This is after growth rate of population. Sex ratio is the next topic in which everybody is interested. Media, journalists, academicians, planners, women's groups or feminist groups, and then we will come to differences in growth rates in different states of India and related issues. So first, talking about population of India, the first question in population sociology of any country is what is the size of population in that country and what is the rate at which this is changing. Now, as suggested by the world population history, population remained more or less constant for a long time due to high fertility and high mortality. As this happened to world population, same thing happened to India. Last time talking about world population growth, I said that man may have appeared on this planet Earth about 5 lakh years ago, but it took 5 lakh years for world population to attain the first billion mark in 1820, and in 1999 we were 6 billion, and perhaps now we are very close to 7 billion. So this you can see that world population remained stable for a very long period of time, and the growth of population belongs only to 19th and 20th century. I also said that in 19th century it was only the developed countries, today's developed countries as classified by UNDP, that there are some developed countries, some less developed countries, and the growth occurred in 19th century first in the developed countries, and that was at a very slow pace. In 20th century, after Second World War, population became a problem for the world because now less developed countries also started growing at a very fast rate, and they were growing at unprecedented rate. Like today developed countries, mostly we talk about the model of England or the French model of demographic transition. These countries, when they develop and when they experience demographic transition, their rate of growth never exceeded some decimal points. In some countries 0.5%, some countries 0.7%, but in the less developed countries during transition period, many populations started growing at rate above 3%. India never reached that level. We will see what India's growth rate has been. So in this backdrop, in India too, like in any other civilization, for a very long time growth rate was almost zero. So population was stable, or population was fluctuating, sometime rising, sometime falling, and that was because of high mortality. Fertility was high, though again there is a caveat here. High fertility does not mean maximum possible fertility. Maximum possible fertility, according to John Bongartz, would be 40 children. If a woman marries at 15 and continues to produce children till 45, she will experience 40 children. But we don't have any history of women having 40 children anywhere. In Hittite population, where the maximum fertility was ever observed, it was 8.9. And the maximum we know from surveys a woman has ever produced is 14 or 15. Nobody has produced more than 15 children. In India, when we say high fertility, this high fertility does not mean 40 children. High fertility in India simply means 6 children. So before the transition began in India, fertility was high, but not 40. It was only 6 point something. And that was because in traditional or ancient society, certain socio-cultural factors, we come to socio-cultural, some socio-cultural factors kept check on reproduction. That you are not allowed to produce baby outside wedlock. Only married women have the right to produce child. At what age you marry, how much time you spend with your husband, after marriage how much time you spend at in-laws place, how much at your own place, parents place. Then there were religious restrictions on sexual intercourse on several days. In India such days numbered more than 100 for religion. So because of several factors, adolescent sterility, primary, secondary sterility and several other issues, our fertility never exceeded 6. When mortality started improving, population size started growing. Eventually, population once again gets stabilized when fertility has fallen, largely in response to economic development and improvement in mortality. This is what we expect. Indian population history is no exception to this, and this module looks at the growth potential of India's population. Now, when we want to know about population of India in the past, one thing that we do not have reliable data. What was India's population during Akbar's time? We don't know. What was India's population during Buddha's time? We don't know. The first population census was conducted in 1872, and that too was not synchronous. It was not a very reliable census. It was not conducted on one date in all parts of the country. This was the first experience of conducting census, and because of remoteness of different regions and lack of infrastructure, lack of manpower, censuses were conducted on different dates in different parts of the country. The first synchronous and nearly complete census was conducted in 1881. We do not have very precise estimates for India's past, therefore. Yet, there are some scholarly estimates which are consistent with the theoretical framework of demographic transition theory. Here I have a table which shows the estimates of population of ancient India. And the source of these estimates is our basic book on population by Kingsley Davis. Not many students of sociology know that Kingsley Davis has been one of the top ranking demographers of the world. You know Kingsley Davis for his book Human Society, which is taught in introductory courses in sociology at BA level. But Kingsley Davis, to demographers, is also known as the author of Population of India and Pakistan. The first and the most important book on population of India and Pakistan was written by Kingsley Davis in 1951. And Kingsley Davis has given the following estimates of India's population for the past. 300 BC, 300 before Christ. Some Pranath, some demographer estimated that India's population must have been between 100 and 140 million. Then in 1600 AD, more recent time, Moreland estimated that India's population must have been around 100. There must have been some errors in estimation of population at all these dates. Maybe, we don't know, 2%, 5%, 10%. But one thing is clear, that if around 300 BC population of India is 100 to 140 million and 1600 it is 100 million, then there has not been much growth in India's population during this time. In 1802, we had only 120 million. 1834, another demographer has given an estimate of 130. 1845, again 130. 1855, 175. Some statistical abstracts of UK possession. have given an adjusted figure of 175 million. 1867 we had 194, and 1871 when the first population census in India is conducted, it yields an estimate of 255. So, if in India also man appeared in this part of the world some 5 lakh years ago, then it took 5 lakh years for India's population to reach 255 million mark, and that was in 1871. Actually, only yesterday I found one interesting paper, and I thought that I will discuss this in the class. It would be, at least the idea would be interesting for you. One demographer, P. Krishnan, wrote an article in Demography India in 1988 in which he tried to estimate population of India around 3000 BC using an interesting data. In our country, there is no history of history writing. Indians were not interested in history. Indians were more interested in philosophy. So you have lots of writings on Buddha, on Krishna, on Ram. You have a long tradition of Ramayana and Mahabharata. But Indian writings are marked for two things. One, that Indians are not so much interested in history as such, and whatever history you find about India is all mixed up with mythology, religion, spiritual discussion. And second thing, that there is no individual authorship. So Indian rishis or Indian writers, when they write something, they don't say that I am saying, or there is no authorship or agency. They say that tradition says this, or Vedas say this, or earlier our rishis said this. Using Mahabharata, Krishnan suggests an estimate of India's population. He said that in Mahabharata, and there are estimates, some recent estimate that Mahabharata must have taken place around 3100 BC, around 5000 years ago. Okay. In 3100 BC, Mahabharata took place in India. And at that time, India was not present day political India. Today's Afghanistan and today's Burma were part of this greater India, about which something can be written like this. And in Mahabharata you find that in all 18 Akshohinis Sena, means army, 18 this is Indian unit of size of army, 18 Akshohinis army participated, 7 Akshohinis on the part of Pandavas and 11 Akshohinis on the part of Kauravas. Now Akshoni is defined like this: in one Akshoni army you have 21,870 chariots, you have 21,870 elephants, and 65,610 horses. That means in each Akshoni you have 1,09,350 soldiers, assuming that chariot, elephant, horse, soldiers ratio is 1:135. Now, if 18 Akshohinis army participated in Mahabharata in 3100 BC, then at that time what was the size of army in India from both the sides, Kauravas and Pandavas? The size of army was 1,09,350. This was the size of army, combining army of both Pandavas and Kauravas. Now, there are some estimates by paleodemographers that in the past the ratio of army to population must have been around 1:18. In the distant past, for every 18 persons you can assume that there was 1 person in army. Now, using that estimate, so lots of assumptions, you have to make use of lots of assumptions if you want to go back to ancient India. So 18 into 1,09,350, that means 1.97 million people took part, and multiplying this by that ratio, let me repeat, 1 Akshoni means 1,09,350, and there were 18 Akshonis of army. So that means the size of army was 1.97 million. Now you can assume that the ratio of army to population was somewhere between 15 and 20. Let us not assume it to be 18 or 15 to 20 anywhere. So using that estimate of Pranath and a broad range, we arrive at an estimate that population of India at that time must have been between 29.6 and 39.4 million. So population of India, I don't know how you will react to this article, but I found this idea very interesting, that as in Mahabharata, you know how many people participated in war. Horses, soldiers, elephants, chariots, and then assuming Prananath's estimate of soldier population ratio, making it broad 15 to 20, we find that population of India in 3100 BC must have been around 30-40 million, which makes sense, because in 300 BC the population of India is estimated to be 100 to 140 million, 1600, 100, so maybe more towards 100 rather than 140. If in 300 BC population of India was 100 million, I can believe that population of India in 3000 BC must have been around 30 or 40 million. So here you have an interesting way of determining what could have been the size of India's population in 3100 BC. It may not be exactly 30 million or 40 million, it may be 28 million or it may have been 42 million. It also depends on how geographical or political India is defined, but this is how population of India grew over the years. So in a way, one can say that till 1871 the population of India has not grown much. You see, I was before coming to class, I also tried to calculate that if during this time 3000 BC to 300 BC population of India grew 3 times, assuming a constant exponential rate of growth, we find that the rate of growth during this time must have been 0.00036 or 0.036%, very low rate of growth. So population of India during this time grew at 0.036%. Interestingly, in Indian religious and mythological literature, population growth is never seen to be in good light. Usually large density of population or large size of population is associated with Kali Yuga, that the weight on this earth, when there is Kali Yuga and lots of people are produced, reproduction level is high, density of population becomes too large, and number of sinners or density of sinners goes beyond a limit, then our earth goes to some god, maybe Brahmaji or somebody, and pray that something should be done for her. In Buddhist literature also, growth of population, somewhere Lord Buddha says that if population continues to grow like this, then there will be continuous collection of houses from here, from the village, referring to some village, from here to hell. So growth of population was never considered to be a good thing in India, and that may be because Indian religions, all Indian religions, not one, Buddhist, Jain, Hindu, all religious philosophies stress brahmacharya and control of desires. So for them, growth of population is a bad omen, bad indicator. Okay, so this is the situation till 1871. Let us see what happens after that. Population data that came from decadal censuses is more reliable, of course, though it has to be adjusted for boundary changes, etc. And now we have a table which shows population of India from 1901 to 2001, 100 years time, previous century. And this is the data on population of India. In 1901, Census of India enumerated a population of 238 million. Then it grew to 252 in the next census, yielding a growth rate of 0.57% per year. Average annual rate of growth was 0.57% per year. Now you see that in 1921, 10 years later, the size of India's population declines to 251 and the rate of growth is negative. It is minus 0.03, a small negative rate of growth. Why? Because in around 1918, India suffered from a big influenza epidemic. Several parts of India, particularly North India, had influenza epidemic in which lakhs of people are believed to have died. And due to that influenza epidemic, our size of population declines to 251 in the next census. After that, population grows to 278, then 318, and you find that there is a continuous rise in rate of growth of population. In 2001 census, last census of India, we enumerated 1.028 billion people. You know, now see in 1820, the whole population of the entire world was 1 billion, and today in 2001, India alone has more than 1 billion people, and this is an underestimation. According to census documents, there has always been some under-enumeration. Luckily, Indian under-enumeration is not as big as in some of the developed countries, but every census has some under-enumeration from say 0.5% to 2%. India's population in 2001 was more than 1.02 billion by at least 1% or maybe by 2%. So this was the size of India's population, and the rate of growth now is 2.16%. If you look at the rate, this column of rate of growth, you find another interesting thing, that first we can believe that up to 1921 growth rate was erratic, then it's increasing 1, then 2. The table shows that in 2001 the total population of the country was 1028737436, a very large in short 1.02 billion or 1028 millions. It was growing at the average annual rate of growth of 2.16%. What is the doubling time? Doubling time approximately 70 divided by R. 70 divided by R. This is the doubling time. So a population which grows at 2.16% doubles in 70 divided by 2.16 years or 32 years time. If the present rate continues, then the India's population will double in 32 years time. Means 2001 plus 32, in 2033 India's population will be more than 2 billion. If this rate continues, this rate will not continue, we know. We expect that the rate of growth of India's population will decline. But if it continues, then in 2033 you have more than 2 billion population. One thing is sure, that by 2060 India would be, demographically speaking, the largest country of the world. Today we are second, but at least in one respect we will become first. We may not become first in any other respect, but in population size at least India would be the first country of the world and surpass China's population very soon. Because today China has more population than India, but the rate of growth of China has already gone down. Total fertility rate is approaching nearly 1, while our total fertility rate is still around 3. This means that this is the table also shows that in the last century population of India grew 4.3 times. Okay. In 100 years time India's population grew 4.3 times. From Mahabharat period 3100 BC to 300 BC, in nearly 3000 years we grew only 3 times, but here in 100 years time we grew 4 times, more than 4 times. The major part of the growth occurred in the last 3 decades, last 30 years only. After independence in 1947, the population of India grew nearly 3 times by the year 2001. In last 50 years, our population became roughly 3 times of what it was at the time of independence. Now the table also shows stages of growth in India's population. On the basis of data, one may divide the population history of India into 4 distinct stages. Before 1921, when population was almost stationary, it will sometime increase, sometime decrease. Then between 1921 to 51, when India's population grew at a rate around 1% per year, slightly more, but around 1% per year. And 51 to 71, when population grew at more than 2% per year. After 71, again population is growing at more than 2%, but the growth rate starts falling. That's a good news, that growth rate starts falling. So these are the stages in which you can divide India's population history. Stage 1, before 1921, population changing at erratic rates, sometime rising, sometime falling. 21 to 51, population continuously rising at rate more than 1% per year. 51 to 71, population rising at rate above 2%. And after 71, population rising at rate above 2%, but the decadal rate of growth declining. In one of the lectures I had mentioned about advantage of demographic window. I think in last lecture only I said that India as such growth of population is bad, but if growth of population can be utilized properly, then it can be an advantageous thing for us. Demographic dividend. In demographic language we say that India has demographic dividend. And the logic is that around 2020, 10 years from now, there will be a big shortage of skilled manpower in the developed countries. We have also estimated figures for that there will be a shortage of around 50 million in all the economically advanced or industrialized countries of the world. In India, we will have a surplus of more than 40. Now, if this surplus of more than 40 can be given adequate training, vocational training, and we can develop our human resources skills, then these 40 can easily be accommodated in various countries of the world where due to industrialization and demographic transition, there is a shortage of manpower. And I am not joking, actually. This is what 11th 5-year plan of India says. 11th 5-year plan of India even shows in which country there will be shortage of how much. In Russia, in China, in Japan, in UK, in USA, in almost all European countries there will be shortage, and the major suppliers of human resources will be India and Pakistan. So we will have to compete with Pakistan. We don't have to compete with developed countries because they need us. We have to compete with Pakistan. If we can provide more quality manpower than Pakistan, then we will be more in demand, and this surplus population of India can go to India's advantage. This is what demographic dividend means. And I also said that demographic dividend, this has 3 reasons. One, fall in fertility. Second, life expectancy at old age is not increasing at high rate. And third, that baby boom population is entering more than 20 now. So this after 71, population growth rate start declining. So that means that the base of India's age distribution has started shrinking, and the baby boomers are now in age group 20 and above, and this is what 25 years demographic window means. So we can take the advantage of demographic window. Till 21, population was stationary. This is all that I have already said. Now before 21, the population had erratic growth, sometimes increasing, sometimes decreasing, though growing slowly. After 21, it started growing at 1%, and that reason was not that the birth rate increased. Birth rate of India did not increase. birth rate was around 50 and total fertility rate was around 6, it did not increase, it remained same. But mortality declined. And between 1921 and 1951, thanks to industrialization, urbanization, economic development, British policies to develop India, our death rate started declining. So while our life expectancy in the beginning of the last century was around 20, it started increasing 25, 30, 35, went up to say 40, and that was the major cause of this rise in growth rate of India's population during this time, 1% per year. During 51 to 71, our life expectancy started increasing further. Birth rate remained same for quite some time, and that is the reason why now population started growing at 2%. After 1971, family planning program in India launched in 1951. India was world's first country to go for an official family planning program in 1951. But it took quite some time to pay dividend. By 1971, you see that couple protection rate has already shown the results of family planning program, and birth rate started declining. So the growth rate, but growth rate remained more than 2. SRS data, this census data which I presented, that shows the decadal picture between say 1991 and 2001, but the decadal growth rate of around 2% would not apply to the recent years. For recent years, sample registration scheme will give us better results, because from there you can know what is contemporary birth rate and what is contemporary death rate. And if you subtract death rate from birth rate, you get the natural growth rate. India, which is not so much affected by international migration, the other day we were discussing that developing countries as a whole have only 1 per thousand rate of emigration. India does not have very high rate of international migration. So India's growth rate is close to natural growth rate, and that comes out to be 2009 is the latest bulletin of SRS which I saw on net, and according to that, in 2008 the difference between birth and death rates was 15.4 per thousand. Birth and death rates are expressed in per thousand terms, but you can convert this into percentage form. So India and this was particularly marked in Punjab, Haryana, Himachal Pradesh, Delhi and Gujarat. Many families willfully decide to remove the female fetus in a quest for sons. That is the major cause of this. Sex ratio at birth or juvenile sex ratio will depend on fertility level, mortality differences, migration, but it depends more on female feticide these days. Female infanticide has almost become non-existent. We can't say that it's completely absent in some parts of rural areas of Bihar and Tamil Nadu and Rajasthan. There have been evidences of female infanticide, but that is something which is not so common these days. But in place of female infanticide, you have female feticide. Recently, IIT Kanpur did a survey of women in some villages of Kanpur district, close to Kanpur city, and it was found that not a small number, at least 20% women had gone for sex determination test. And what was surprising, that in all those cases in which they were told that they are going to produce a female baby, all of them aborted, all of them. This is the reason of fall of juvenile sex ratio. When they are told that they are going to produce a male baby, then very few of them go for feticide. And unfortunately, this happens in the more educated and affluent localities. Our researchers show that the sex determination and female feticide is positively associated with social class and caste. More prevalent in upper caste, more prevalent in affluent families, those who have bigger size of land holding, and the motivation may be to protect property, family business, and to avoid giving dowry. If there has to be a change in the mindset, leaders in society have to show the way, otherwise the population will become skewed, leading to a host of societal problems like increased crime against women. So shortage of women is not going to help women. Even women will face more of harassment, crime. Already in Haryana and Punjab, these things, these cases are coming to light. Districts with extreme child sex ratio. This is a picture of regional variation. See, on one side you have Arunachal Pradesh, you have Jammu and Kashmir. These are some districts. I'm sorry, I forgot to write name of the district here. But in Arunachal Pradesh, you have juvenile sex ratio of 1035. In Pulwama, Jammu and Kashmir, 1033. Kupwara, Jammu and Kashmir, 1021. Very good sex ratio. In Arunachal Pradesh and Jammu and Kashmir and in Chhattisgarh, you have good sex ratio. And on the other hand, in Punjab, Haryana, in Fatehgarh Sahib district of Punjab, you have the worst sex ratio in India. In 0 to 6, you have 766 females per 1000 males. In Kurukshetra in Haryana, 771, Patiala, Punjab, 777, Ambala, 782, and Mansa, Punjab, 782. Next lecture will be devoted to age and other characteristics of India's population. I also have some figures which I can discuss with you. This is from 11th 5-year plan, and then if you have any question you can ask that. Regarding juvenile sex ratio, it's not true that juvenile sex ratio is associated with poverty and literacy. Our Kanpur study also showed that it's a phenomenon connected with upper caste and upper classes. In India as a whole, also it is more connected with upper caste, upper class, high education group. 11th 5-year plan gives us figures for juvenile sex ratio for different religions of the country, different regions, different religions, different communities, educated, uneducated, and you find that something you must never have thought of. What do you think that in which religion there will be more feticide, female feticide? Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Sikhs, Parsis, who are more violent. Shukur, who are more violent. And the figures show that the sex ratio is highest for the category of others, 976. If others are to be excluded, then you have highest sex ratio for Muslims. No, sorry, Christians, 964. Christians, maybe because of Kerala effect. Kerala, you have more Christians. Northeast, we have seen that Arunachal Pradesh, Kerala, Jammu and Kashmir, these are the areas where sex ratio is better. Female by male sex ratio is better. So Christians who are highly educated, more in Kerala and in Northeast, they have better sex ratio, 964. Very good. And the worst sex ratio is to be found among Sikhs. Sikhs have a sex ratio of 786. And next to Sikhs, it is Jains, among whom child sex ratio is 870. I sometimes wonder that on the one hand, Jain religion as such talks of non-violence. I have read that Gandhiji learned the philosophy of non-violence because of Jain and Vaishnava influence on him. But Jain, who are otherwise believer of non-violence, they have the lowest sex ratio. Maybe they do not have female infanticide.
They are most urbanized, I think. This Jains.
That is because they are most educated. They have very high level of education, and they are mostly in trading. They are trading community, and they have the biggest property, perhaps among all the religious communities in India. Parsis and Jains, they have very high level of affluence, and maybe in order to keep their property within the family, they are resorting to this female infanticide, female feticide, not infanticide. This shows that it's not actually religion, it's more of socio-economic conditions which are determining people's consciousness today. I think I can stop here. You can again ask one or two questions on growth of India's population, if anything comes to your mind.
So regarding this mortality in Orissa, why there is like the mortality is high, but the fertility, there is some, it has been included in the Bimaru state, but there is some controversy about it. Is it the influence of Christianity among the tribals of Orissa?
One theory about this is that mortality is high because of poverty. Odisha, at one time when Bihar or some big states, Madhya Pradesh, they were not divided, Odisha had one of the worst levels of poverty. Even now in several districts of Odisha, particularly tribal dominated districts, level of poverty is very high, infrastructure is very poor, they are remote, uneducated, and they are because lack of health infrastructure, lack of education, mortality level is high. Fertility level is relatively less, or family planning practices are high. That is more because of government policies and encouragement for sterilization, incentive for sterilization, and poor people, poor tribal people of remote areas can be lured more easily than urban educated people or those in towns.
Or is it the transformation of the tribes of Orissa tribes into Christianity? There is a huge Christian tribes in India.
I don't know, but this is an interesting hypothesis. Maybe at some places where this is to be seen. I have not seen any study of this, but it's an interesting hypothesis that maybe when tribals become Christians, then in certain respects they become more rational and they go for limiting family size. But because of lack of infrastructure and poverty, they still suffer from high mortality. It's an interesting hypothesis and one can look into this. Thank you.